Welcome to the Bakers part of our Code Bakers channel. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make one of the most popular, most gorgeous cakes, the unicorn cake. It's a 3-layer cake. As you can see, I made mine winter themed. You do not have to make yours winter themed. I got some beautiful snowflakes on here. And I love making these unicorn cakes. They are so gorgeous. Alright, so stay tuned and you too can learn how to make a unicorn cake. First, we have to start with the fondant elements. We need to do those at least a few days, if not a week in advance, depending on where you live and the humidity level. You want to make sure your fondant horn has plenty of time to dry. So we're going to start with our fondant items. Okay, so a lot of people don't like the taste of fondant and they say, oh, I don't want anything fondant, but this it doesn't really matter because, well, unless you have kids like the kids at our parties and are like, I want to eat the horn. It doesn't really matter what it tastes like because nobody's really going to eat it. So you can get any store-bought, you can go to Walmart and buy store-bought fondant. One of their smallest containers should suffice because it is getting close to Christmas. I have been wanting to do a winter-themed unicorn, so that's what we're going to start with. We're going to do today. I'm starting with 2 gumball size balls of fondant. You want to make sure that you make these the same size. Basically what I do is I kind of form my ear, that's what I'm starting with, and make sure it's about how much I need, and then I round it back up and get 2 of them so I have them the same size. It is winter right now, so there is not very much humidity, so I'm not worrying about them drying in time. And if it was humid in summertime, I might add a little Tylose powder to it, and that just helps it harden and dry faster. So right now I'm just rounding up my ears, and I'm going to press them down and use my fingers and just press it out into an ear shape. It's super, super simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just want them to be similar in size. You don't want them too thin. You want them thick enough that they're going to be able to stand up themselves on the top of the cake. There's going to be nothing supporting these inside other than the ear itself and the rosettes, which turns into the mane on the top of the cake. So you want them just similar in size, and you just essentially just make 2 triangles for your ears. Super, super easy and simple. And then I'm going to put them on my Silpat mat to dry. You can put them on wax paper, parchment paper as well. Definitely do not stick them just straight on your cookie sheet because then it'll have a hard time getting them off. Okay, now since we are making a winter unicorn, I'm going to make my horn silver. And if we were doing a regular unicorn, I'd probably add a little yellow food coloring. I do not want to get my hands stained, especially since I'm going to be making snowflakes next. So I'm just going to wipe a little bit of black food coloring into this, and I have my gloves on. And hopefully this doesn't end up too dark. Just a little bit of black should make it just a nice gray. You hear my gloves wrinkling, I know. It's getting a kind of a marbled effect to it. It's almost there. Doesn't take much. I am going to use luster dust on my horn to make it nice and shiny, but I want to start with my color just so I don't have to use so much of the luster dust, and the background color will kind of add to it. Alright, see, it's already nice and gray, so I can lose these crinkly gloves. And we're going to roll it into a ball. If the fondant is too sticky, you can use a little bit of powdered sugar on it. And if it is too stiff, you can add a little bit of shortening to it as well. If your fondant has been a little bit old and been sitting around, you can actually put it in the microwave for a few seconds, warm it up, and then work it with your fingers. And a lot of times it will come back to life. Okay, so I'm rolling this out into, my table is not letting me roll very well, into a long log here. just like you do when you're playing with Play-Doh when you're making a snake. All right, so we're gonna start about a third way up of our dowel rod here, and I'm gonna hold it with my finger, and I'm gonna slowly start wrapping my horn around. I am slightly pulling gently with my other hand, so it gets a little bit thinner as I go up, because we don't want a horn the same thickness all the way up. And I just pull, and once I get up to the top, I just kind of twist it up and around the end of my dowel. And I kind of squeeze it there and bring it to a point, that way you don't see my dowel. And I'm just going to make sure all of my pieces are together, and that's it. That is how simple the unicorn horn is. You can push it up a little bit, just make sure your pieces are touching so when it dries it won't fall apart. And it may be a little too long. I won't know until I actually get it next to the finished cake, and that's not a big deal because we can just trim up the bottom of the dowel. And then I'm going to set this as well right here onto my Silpat mat, and I'm going to give this a few days to dry, and when we're ready to do the cake I'm going to paint this with a luster dust. Now next, this is all you would need if you're doing a regular unicorn cake, and you would have probably made this a yellow or a golden yellow horn. Well, since I am making a winter unicorn cake, I am going to make some snowflakes to put in the main as well. So I just have my additional piece of fondant here. I'm just going to roll that out real quick. I know I'm making a lot of noise. And I have these handy dandy fondant cutters here. I don't think I'm gonna need. We got this 3-set, and they're little plunger snowflake cutters. I borrowed these from work actually. So what you do, and these, again, you don't have to use these, this is just for this one. You're gonna press down, and when you're ready to pop it out, you push the plunger down, and it comes out with this neat little snowflake design on it.
There.
Okay, so these little plunger snowflake cutters make doing the snowflake and a cute little design on them super quick and easy. I'm probably going to make more than I actually think I'm going to need. That way I have plenty in case I want to add more. But these work very well. I mean, they have had powdered sugar on them because I use them at work. But I'm not even, I mean, nothing's sticking very much. Everything's working pretty well. And we're weirdos at work, so we had 3 of us at one time cutting out snowflakes. We said we had a mommy, a daddy, and a baby snowflake cutter. That side's getting a little sticky, so I'm just going to flip it over. So my main, when I do my unicorn, is going to be a pretty periwinkle and silver and blue colors. And then I'm going to have these really nice sparkly snowflakes on it as well. Just kind of around on the bottom and then around the main, and it's going to turn out really nice. Alright, I'm going to continue cutting snowflakes, and this is it for the fondant part. We'll catch up with you when we are ready to do the baking. Okay, so I have made my fondant items a few days ago, and what I have here is I've actually just made my cake batter with 2 boxes of store-bought cake mix. It's the easiest way, fastest way to do it. You will need to do 3 layers of 8-inch round cake, and excuse me, the 2 boxes of cake mix works perfectly. So I only have 1 8-inch pan, so I'll be doing this in 3 batches. Now my tried and true method of greasing your pan, you take a little bit of shortening on a paper towel, and we're going to rub a thin layer of shortening Make sure you get it in the crease around the bottom and the corners, or, you know, there's no corner around, but, you know, around the edge down here, and completely cover this with a nice thin layer of shortening. And we're going to put in about a tablespoon or so of flour into our pan, and I'm going to shift that flour around starting on the bottom, and then I'm going to work it down to the side of my pan and just rotate my pan until your flour is completely covering the pan in a nice thin layer. Now it's going to bunch up a little, so we're just going to knock it down and tap it out. I'm going to tap it out on my plate and then I'm going to drop my pan. But now I can reuse this flour for my next 8-inch cake. Alright, so I already have my cake mix mixed up. The kids, for some reason, they wanted lemon cake, so this is what I went with. And like I said, it's just 2 box mixes baked and made to the box mix directions. And I'm going to pour about 1/3 of my cake mix in here. Now I have recently learned, even though I've been baking forever, that apparently a good way to bake is to have your eggs come to room temperature before you're making any baking items, cake, cookies, etc. So I did do that. Now I have about a little more. So I got 1 8-inch pan here. Like I said, you are going to need 3 layers of 8-inch cake. So I'll be doing mine in 3 batches. I'm going to tap my cake mix down on the stove, and then I'm going to bake this cake mix just as the package directions state, and I'll get back with you after this one is complete. Alright, my cake is complete. I double check and make sure my knife comes out clean, which means it is done in the center. And what I'm going to do when it first comes out of the oven, I'm going to hold it with my pot holders and give it a little shake. You hear that? That's just to make sure all of my sides are coming loose. That's what we did that shortening and flour on the pan for. Now I'm going to let this sit for just 5 minutes, and then I'm going to take it out of the pan so I can reuse my pan. So I'm going to set my timer, and in 5 minutes we will be taking this out. Alright, it's been 5 minutes. I can kind of touch the pan a little to the touch without pot holders. You never want to let a cake cool completely in the pan, or the shortening will harden up and you will not be able to get it out. Alright, so I'm double shaking this again just to make sure every piece is loose. If for some reason it's not loose, you can run a knife along the sides. See, I got that nice and loose in there. Now, it is hot and fragile, so we're going to work quickly. I have a piece of paper here with some wax paper on it. The wax paper is just to make sure I can get it up later. It's not really important, except it will stick to the pan a little bit. It's a quick removal, nice and flat on the bottom. Flip it, and 1 cookie sheet. I should have plenty of room for 2 8-inch cakes. I'm going to let this cool completely on the counter till it is completely cool. Wrap it in plastic wrap very tightly and refrigerate overnight. That way it firms up, and we'll be making our unicorn cake tomorrow. Alright, we are going to make the frosting for our unicorn cake today. I am going to make a pretty traditional American buttercream frosting. Usually it is half margarine or butter and half shortening. Since I want a nice white look to my unicorn, I want a very steady frosting. I don't want it to be too soft. I am actually going to do 3 parts shortening and 1 part margarine. And I want a nice white glossy white look to it, so I am going to use name brand shortening. When I make my frostings, I try to use the name brand instead of the off brand. And for the margarine, it usually doesn't matter. So I'm going to do 3 cups of shortening and 1 cup of...
Crisco.
Are you saying name brands?
You said name brand. So.
1 cup of margarine, 1 cup or 2 sticks of margarine. Alright, I'm going to put that into my bowl, and I'm going to cream the heck out of that. Okay, so my shortening margarine mixture, as you can see, is nice and soft and fluffy. To this, we're going glossy. We're going to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla and 1 teaspoon of salt. The salt is to kind of cut down on the sweetness. I'm just going to stir that in. We're making a pretty large batch of frosting. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just whip that with the mixer just for a second. Okay. And I'm going to get my sifter. And I'm going to start with, I have 2 bags of powdered sugar. They are 2-pound bags. So we are actually going to use about 4 pounds of powdered sugar in this recipe. And to try to make sure we don't have lumps, I am going to sift this. We just have our timer going off in the background. We got all kinds of stuff going on today. Oops, I just spilled some of it in there. Right, so I'm working on sifting my first 2 pounds of powdered sugar. See, I had some good lumps in the bottom of my sifter there. That's how we do it around here. We just throw the bag across the counter into the sink. Get it out of the way. Alright, and those pieces that didn't want to go through, I just smash them just to make sure they're small enough. Ouch! The sifter just cut me. Alright, so
loose wires.
I already got powdered sugar all over the place. This is just going to get messier. I'm going to go ahead and do my first mix. Okay, at this point, it should be looking pretty thick. Almost like, hey, this is almost done. But in fact, it is not. We are going to add 5 tablespoons of liquid. You can use, I recommend milk today, or heavy cream. I'm using heavy cream because I happen to have heavy whipping cream today. I'm just going to add all that into there. You can also use water. And I'm going to mix that in, and it's going to get a lot softer again. Alright, so my cream is mixed in, and I'm going to get my other 2 pounds of powdered sugar. And as you can see, this icing is a very soft frosting at this point, and it's obviously not going to be sweet enough because we still have 2 more pounds of powdered sugar to put in there. So I'm going to sift my next set of powdered sugar. And as you can see, I just finished sifting, and we are getting pretty darn messy around here, but that's going to happen. It's going to get worse when I use my mixer. Normally I would like using my stand mixer for this, but I am making a large batch, so we have to make it in a regular bowl. So I'm going to mix this up. It's going to start to blow powdered sugar everywhere.
Not for a pro like you.
Yes, I'm being careful. As long as you know what you're doing, you can kind of keep your mixer aimed where it needs to be. The mixer's working hard.
Dying fast.
It's because it's thickening up. I'll make sure I get all the way down to the bottom. But I don't want to force the mixer. When I hear it starting to feel like that, I gotta bring it back up and let it breathe for a minute. Alright, I think we're pretty thoroughly mixed here. Now, I don't know if everybody else knows this trick, but when you bring your mixer out, to keep it down in the bowl and turn it up high. And that way it kind of flings off a lot of your excess stuff that's on your beaters.
I thought everybody knew that.
I don't know. I don't think everybody does. There's a lot of people who don't do any cooking.
Yeah.
Now look how thick this frosting is now.
It's like ice cream.
This should frost our unicorn cake beautifully. So that is a good American buttercream frosting recipe. If you're making, oh, I just got frosting on the floor. I'm gonna wipe off my beaters. If you're making cutout cookies or anything like that, you don't need as firm of a frosting. You can always just do half margarine, half shortening, or butter. A lot of people like to use real butter. In American buttercream, I don't like the real butter added into it.
Don't color your whole giant batch.
Oh yes, definitely. Do not color this whole thing. We're gonna leave it white. So I'm going to get this cleaned up and pause for a moment, and I'm gonna get my cakes out and just get my cakes set up and crumb coated, and we'll continue on this next time.